Good morning and welcome to the IoT North Food for Thought show. Once known as the Breakfast Club, but we've changed the name because we're going to be changing the time so it's a bit more flexible for people to join the show. Thanks for joining us this morning. And we're going to have a discussion about gaining the trust with the public in IoT with its use in the public domain. There was a great documentary on BBC about the use of artificial intelligence and cameras in the public last night. Today we have Leonard Carey from Awaretag joining us. Let me just bring in Leonard now. Hi, good morning, Leonard. How are you?
Hi, morning, Paul.
Good morning. If anybody's got any questions or would like to join into the discussion, please do pop it into the comments on whichever platform you're on, Facebook, LinkedIn, or YouTube, and we'll respond live to it as well, and we'll also pop up your comment as well. So, Leonard, great to have you on the show this morning. Would you like to introduce yourself and tell everybody about Awaretag?
Yeah, so Leonard Carey. So I'm the founder of the company's Aware Technologies, but our brand, if you like, is Awaretag, and we design and we build small environmental sensors, small enough so that you can put them almost anywhere, but also the apps. We've got the machine learning, the AI in there as well, but also we've got in the team user researchers. We call them sort of CX UX researchers, and they're really looking at, and we'll come on to it a bit later. I think that our focus is about how do we implement edge computing in an IoT environment so that we can preserve individual privacy, and then we can also create this data ethics framework. So a bit of an IoT plus, I guess, organization where we've got a lot of technology, but our strong focus is about how do we create an environment where people can trust the technology and have it in their homes.
And so I think that leads on greatly to the chat, Leonard. Is there a public fear of IoT adoption from your experience? Have you seen that pushback come through?
Yeah, so just to give a bit of background, we were quite lucky at the end of last year to have won a GovTech Phase 2 project with Leeds City Council. So it's sponsored by GovTech and Innovate UK. But that project is all about, we're 6 months in and we've got another 6 months to go. That project is about how do we take our technology and put it into the social housing and help the council to improve their services, particularly around detecting mold and damp issues and prioritising what stock or what families that they go and help. But also, more importantly, is how do we use that technology and how do we gain trust with the tenants so that they actually actively accept the technology into their homes. And I think one of the reasons why we felt that was really, really important, we put a lot of energy up front in the project about understanding levels of trust and what people trusted and what their fears were, is because I think within the team, we've worked in large corporate organizations and done IoT and M2M and all those sorts of things over the past few years. And there's always been that problem of someone saying, well, what's in it for me? And how can I trust that actually you say it's only got temperature and humidity, but does it have a microphone in it as well? And who's actually getting that information? What are they doing with that? And particularly now, there's a lot of, well, you saw in the news around facial recognition. People are getting a little bit more savvy to these, to the technologies. And it is becoming to a point where, I was on a project a few years ago where we did put it into a block of flats, and we tried talking to tenants and saying how this would help them and help them live better lives. But in the end, because it wasn't clear, they just ripped the sensors out.
Wow.
And I think so in this project, spent a lot of time understanding what those fears were. And I think one big thing that came out was, is this going to be imposed on me? Mm-hmm. Is the value for me, or is it for maybe the council or somebody else I don't know? The bugging bit came up quite a lot, actually.
Yeah.
And no matter what you try and do, and I think in the past all been guilty in the technology field of, if you show somebody a sensor and you say it only does that, how do you prove it only does that? How do you make sure that people are actually engaged in that design? They can, you give them enough, not just enough, but you don't sort of dumb down things, but you don't make it too too techy, so that they don't get it. They feel as if they've got agency and some sort of level of involvement in the design. So that's why, as a business, and as in this project, we've done a lot of co-design with people, all the way from what the tag does, what sensors it's got on it, the way it looks, the way it feels, how you can install it yourself, so that every step along the way, it becomes something that is owned by the homeowner, and they feel that, not just feel, but they know that they've had a hand in its design. But I think the other area of fear, it's only recently come up, I think, is and there may be some other of the viewers who know more than we do, because we're just starting to get to grips with the Fitness for Habitation Act. Now, and when you look at that Fitness for Habitation Act and GDPR and the whole world of consent, there is starting to emerge some, because the Fitness for Habitation Act says, well, the landlord has new responsibilities, not just about the structure of the building, but making sure that you're warm and safe in your home.
Right.
Then there's an argument to say that actually they've got a public task. It's that they must put sensors in people's homes, and there isn't a need for, if you like, consent from the homeowner, and that's starting to build up a bit of anxiety around, well, do we just put it in there, or do we still actively get consent from the homeowner, and how do we position it? Because if they say no, do we still go ahead anyway? And I think a lot of councils are starting to think about that and concerned about that, and landlords are as well. And it's about how you get that balance right of communicating exactly what you're trying to do, why it's beneficial for the tenant, but also for the council and for the wider community. But it is a fear at the moment, and we're working, we're discovering a lot about where those fears are, because they are quite wide as well. I think when we look at the different personas that we're speaking to, you would, stereotypically, you would say, well, younger people don't care and older people do care. But actually, it's a complete mix, complete mix.
And that's the thing. And that's the thing about personas and discovery, isn't it? Is that you start to break down the generalistic persona down into actual very particular personas, depending on people's working levels, age, the combination of stuff, being the early adopters and or not. You quite often find early adopters understand that the technology is not as advanced as people fear, especially when it's being used in certain levels. Unless you're a multi-billion-dollar company, and then they do have stuff, but then they still buy an Alexa. Not saying Alexa's doing anything wrong by any means. There's a disclaimer, but it is collecting an awful lot of data. There was a great show on BBC last night about this and about artificial intelligence use, and from it being used in the public domain to being used for military, which the global military are spending billions on this. That it is literally becoming war games. One of my favorite films with Broderick, but they've got to take in consideration the fears of it. And one of the things that really resonates with me when I've been out talking to customers about using computer vision as a sensor, as an example, vision as a sensor, and artificial intelligence and edge computing in that space, they're straight away, well, what about facial recognition and stuff? And it's like, it only knows what you teach it, and then it evolves that teaching, but it's not going to start looking at people's faces and saying, I know that, because it needs that data set to know who you are. So it's getting people to understand the stages of the technology and what you are enabling it with, and not what you're enabling it with. But then on the flip side is also people's technical understanding. When we communicate as technologists, sometimes we think, when we're leveling the communication down to a really bottom level, sometimes even that's too complicated. For years, my test has been, and no offense to my mum, who I love dearly, I'll try and explain something to her, and if she doesn't get it, then I know I'm not getting it down to the right level.
Yeah, exactly.
For her to understand. If anybody has any questions or any thoughts on this, please do put in comments your thoughts and such like, and we'll respond live on that. So Leonard, you've talked to us about some of the public fear, and it is very interesting. IoT sensors and stuff in public spaces, like how busy is tune that we had last week, and using cameras to measure how busy areas are and such like. You're taking it to that another level of actually putting it into public housing and such like, and helping maintain them to the benefit of the public. And yet again, people still do have that fear of what it's really doing. Are they listening to us and such like, especially if people are doing other types of business and such like in their home that they shouldn't be doing, shall we say?
Yeah.
But how do you communicate at that level to get everybody to understand what the value is to them?
It's interesting. When we started off, our very first jump off point was to go and speak to a whole bunch of charities. And the reason why we spoke to charities, we wanted to get an understanding of, particularly in any city, any place, there's quite diverse communities.
Mm-hmm.
And as an example, I'm going to talk about the value to the public in a moment. But the one thing that came out was the fear of blame, of being blamed, because when we talk about mold and damp, particularly about mold and damp, because that's a big thing and has been in the recent press, and I think going into winter it will be again this year. People have different ways of living, and it's always that idea of if you tell somebody, for instance, when you cook, put your lid on your pan and make sure you have the ventilation in your kitchen. But there's some cultures that do a lot of cooking, a lot of open pot cooking, and they simmer things down. But if you've got a rule that says this IoT is detecting that your kitchen is too humid,
mm-hmm.
and we're going to tell you, and you need to put the lids on, and if you're not doing it, then something's wrong. Then immediately you start to categorize types of cultural norms or behaviors and start to say that's right and that's wrong, or this needs attention. And I think so one of the things that we did right at the very beginning was start talking to as many charities as we possibly could, representing different parts of the communities, understanding what were the issues that people came to them about around their homes. Because what we discovered was that some people are very, very proud of their homes, and what they want to do is give that information that the IoT part with sensors, they want to give other people an idea of what good looks like.
Yeah.
Other people would say, actually, I really want to understand the things that I need to do to improve it. Others want it on the other extreme to say, well, yeah, actually, I want to just prove to the repairs group that this is what's going on, and I want to be able to speak the same language as the repairs team and not be fobbed off. I want to be listened to. So if I've got some Internet of Things type insight and I understand it, and the repairs group and maintenance group understand it, and that's valuable in itself, because I'm now going to be listened to on an equal footing.
Yeah.
But also, what we also discovered, particularly speaking to a lot of charities, there's a lot of people who simply don't use the internet, who don't have smartphones, who don't have apps, who don't engage with these sorts of things, but still want to be able to get the value of knowing that actually their house is warm, is safe, they're spending money in the right places, it's well insulated over winter, maybe switch the heating up slightly higher. They want those benefits, but maybe not as an app. And so that whole value, the public value piece, was more around not just the digital public value, but how you're going to surface that information in many different channels. Some digital, some just by word of mouth, some by a friend, and how you're going to be able to get that out to those people who most need it. And I think the value piece has also surfaced a bit of a dilemma, a bit of an expectation issue, where if you do put IoT in people's homes and you do tell them about, well, the thermal performance or the insulation isn't very good, and maybe you can improve it by doing these things, and maybe there's some help that you need to get a repairs done, the knock-on effect, the expectation will then be in the same way that we go on, I don't know, some online shopping and Amazons of this world. You order it, you expect it tomorrow. If it's not there tomorrow, then you think, oh, what's going on? There's an expectation risk, if you like, that using IoT within people's homes, if something is detected, is how do you then make sure that the services then that back up and give you that help as responsive as the IoT. And I think that's one of the value pieces that we're picking up now, that people expect that if they're going to have this in their homes, and they do have something picked up, that the service bit would follow through as quick as the IoT.
Yeah, I think that's really an important part, especially in the play of helping with public housing and such, like, is that enabling them to understand that, when you had that problem, and many of them have, if they've been in those homes, that it's taken some time to get things done sometimes. I know, companies like Carbon Homes here in the Northeast are making an investment on how they adopt this type of technology to better service their properties, because they lose a lot of money in repairs not getting done in time. That actually it becomes like sort of like manufacturing in regards to investing in that predictive maintenance side for them, and it dramatically helps them reduce cost. So there's a good profit loss line to it for their product and their service that enables them to become much more proactive rather than reactive, which can become extremely costly when it comes down to property. It's then one of the things that I find really interesting is on our marketplace, which would be great to have you guys on there. On the IoT North marketplace, we have one of the early adopters of it, which is a sensor for opening and closing the window. So as you were saying, it'd be great for you guys to actually connect with them. What resonated with me with the problem statement that you made there about, some people like to do open pot cooking, which creates a lot of humidity and moisture in the air within the kitchen, that actually enabling them with that sensor and motor to be able to open and close the window, that it removes that from them, that it does it for them. And the benefit to the investment on that is, having that on bathroom windows and kitchen windows as an example helps to reduce that impact of moisture and stuff, which can have a detrimental effect over a period of time.
It does, and I think one thing that's interesting, we've done a lot of research with individuals, service providers, even people who do the assessment of homes and everything, and we had a really good one yesterday where we talked about, because the sensors that we've got, we can detect whether there's ventilation, windows open, and it's really quite powerful what it can detect. And we spoke to one tenant, and we said, we're going to set you a bit of a challenge. If you open a window, then what we're going to see in the data is that there's going to be a reduction in humidity. He said, but my son keeps closing the windows. So there's that human element of, although we as technologists and maybe as repairs and maintenance groups, we know the benefits, but then what we're realizing is that through all the research that we're doing is we need to find a way to cater for it's not just a house, it's not just a dwelling, it's a home, and in that home people have their own habits, and how do you find ways of gamifying or encouraging behavior change, whether it's what sort of rewards do you provide there? Is it just about in the community there's social validation, and this is where our app and research group come in. There's a whole bunch of psychology that we're now feeding into the technology. And that's why also we're doing a lot of the edge computing, because everyone's different. And we are getting some of the tenants to classify what we're seeing, so we can actually start building patterns of their lives and actually surface information and guidance that is relevant to them, rather than just a generic piece. And that's like you say, it's, we've all been guilty of it, saying, well, it just makes sense, just open a window. But for a lot of people, it's, if I open a window, I'm using a top-up card for my heating, and I'm on a budget. If I open a window, all that heat goes out. And why would I open a window? And those are real, real people, and their decisions that they're making every day.
Yeah, it's then connecting the ecosystem, isn't it, with their heating system, with the windows. That, when it opens the window to let in air and such, like turning off the heating system for a while. Do it, it's sort of driving in that artificial intelligence side. It's really interesting you're talking about gamification in this space as well, and enabling people to be rewarded for doing what's right. There's a company I've come across out in the US that have a really interesting proposition for using Bluetooth LE devices and using your mobile phone. So they have an SDK that you will put into an app. And then you use the data connection of the customer's mobile phone. The benefit to the customer is or it would be to you, and then you decide on how you reward the customer, is you get cryptocurrency. So the more data that flows through that connection, you get rewarded with their cryptocurrency. So then it enables you to sort of build out an economy of either, reward points and such like, as gamification, or you give them the cryptocurrency. The cryptocurrency may have more benefit to your business that you can reinvest into your business from that reward. Or you do a 50-50 split with the customer. Evidently, the amount of data that'll transfer through their connection may be small. However, with that app, when they're out and about, and if other services are using that as well, then it enables them to be rewarded for that, not just for the connectivity in their home.
I think you're right. I think there's and what we've discovered in the research, there's a whole spectrum of what people see as reward and what they want, and it goes from we've got a few tenants that says, look, if you can just top up my my electricity, gas meter, and every time I open a window and I need to ventilate the place, if you can just credit my my electricity and gas, then I'm happy.
Yeah.
All the way through to actually I want a voucher or whatever, or cryptocurrency. I think there's some companies doing a sort of cryptocurrency rewards if you have a LoRa device.
There is helium.
Well. Helium. That's it.
Yep.
And I think so. There's lots of really innovative things that are going on to encourage people. But I think what we're also discovering is that there's some people just don't want to be forced or believe that there's a bit of a, follow me, here's a carrot, and feel as if they're being taken down a road. And it's a really difficult balance. Some people just really do love the idea of, they're just curious. They're just curious about how things are going on. They just want to see the app and go, oh my goodness, there's wonderful things in my house.
There's also those people that really don't care.
People don't care.
There's the people who just want to make sure that if their house is safe and warm and dry and nothing's going to fall apart or break, then they're fine and happy with it. But as you say, and it's trying to find that balance. You can't please everybody with it, but things will become the norm. People didn't always have windows. We've had them for hundreds of years, but they didn't always have windows for the whole thing of keeping the heat in and such like. Plus, they didn't know how to make glass. Leonard, it's been absolutely brilliant having a chat with you. I really appreciate your time this morning. We have come to we have overrun by 5 minutes as always on this show, but it's been absolutely brilliant having a chat with you, and thanks for sharing. Please do get onto the marketplace, IoT North uk/marketplace, and put some of your solutions on there, and we'll promote them for you. If you'd like to join the forum, it's forum.iotnorth.uk. register there and start the chat. We're building it out, and we have a new sponsor coming through from a great company, DigiKey. So we'll be promoting and talking about that very soon as well. Leonard, thanks very much for your time this morning. Have a great day, and look forward to catching up soon.
I'm not in the habit of taking orders from a machine.